What is up, ladies and gentle nerds? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and we are here with another edition of Overthinking MTG. All right, we are going to go ahead and take a look at a random card. Let's see what we got. Misguided Rage. Okay, this is the kind of stuff I absolutely adore. Plus, this actually was in the very first set that I played, which was Scourge. I know I talk about that a lot because that was a very that was a developmentally significant time for me. So I can't help but be aware of stuff like that set. There's something about the artwork. There's something about the mechanics. It just makes me really happy because, well, that was where I first got started. Um, yeah, so let's just get into it. It's funny actually. So no, let's not get into it. Let's tangent right out of the gate like I always do. So in a recent episode of the Command Zone podcast, they had all their editors talk about different cards that they absolutely adore, and Ashlyn Rose, who's an editor over there and also a phenomenal content creator in her own right, she talked about. She talked about Eldrazi, and the way that she put it was much like a baby duck emerging from its egg and imprinting on the first thing it sees, which is generally its mother. When she first started playing the game, it was at a time during, I believe it was the original Zendikar, when Eldrazi were everywhere. And so she said, just like a baby duck emerging from its egg, I just saw Eldrazi and imprinted on them. And she talks about how much she loves Eldrazi. Okay, cool. Well, tribal gameplay is very much that for me because that was what I started into. That was magic when I first got started. I was the guy building a beast deck when all my friends had elf decks or cleric decks or soldier decks. I was the one building, beasts, and I did have a soldier deck to be fair. And then birds is ultimately the one that I like really glommed onto. Anyway, we're not talking about any of that today. Today we are talking about Misguided Rage, which is a sorcery for one red, two generic, so converted mana cost three. It's a sorcery in red. It's a common, so this is just part of the standard removal package that you might get in a draft. And it's target player sacrifices a permanent. It's that simple. You just got to dump something. It can be whatever you want, but you got to let at least one thing go. So it's not great, to be fair, because you don't get to choose what it is. So if your opponent has a semi decent board state, or if this is late in the game, especially in a draft kind of a scenario, where it's like, okay, yeah, you have to sacrifice a permanent. All right, well, you can let one of your seven lands go, and then you're like, meh, all right, whatever. It's not a big deal. You're not really losing out on much. But if it's early in the game and you hit this on turn three, and your opponent has a pretty lean, pretty focused board state, that could really disrupt their plans, potentially. So it's pretty limited, and it's really only good if you hit it right away. The fact that it costs three makes it just a little too expensive to be good. And the fact that it's just so wide open. So that's the funny thing. When you have targeted removable, one more time. When you have targeted removal, it's great when you can target anything. Being able to hit any type of permanent out there is phenomenal. Cards like Assassin's Trophy, Utter End, um, well, Assassin's Trophy and Utter End are two really good examples. They allow you to hit any single permanent on the board whatsoever. Utter End costs four, one black, one white, and then two generic, and you just get to exile one thing. Doesn't matter what it is, just hit it. Assassin's Trophy, on the other hand, costs one green and one black. Destroy target permanent. Period. Any permanent you want, including lands. But then their controller, that permanent's controller can search their library for any basic land and put it into play tapped. So they get a free rampant growth, but you can destroy whatever the hell you want, including their lands. So if they have a really powerful land on the battlefield, it's a wonderful way to get rid of it at instant speed. So that's phenomenal because it allows you to touch absolutely anything. Meanwhile, Misguided Rage here, it allows you to touch absolutely anything, but it's your opponent's choice. And so you're giving your opponent more choices. You aren't yourself getting more choices. And that's the key difference. And that's why Misguided Rage is a little too expensive and not really good compared to um, compared to removal. Now, see, if this exact same card said destroy target permanent, that'd be phenomenal. This would be a $10 card, and you'd have to put it in every single deck with red in it ever, because direct destroy is something that red very doesn't really have. In fact, like you would argue that that card would be broken, and so it should never exist. It would functionally, it basically be like a beast within. Um, and except better because you're not creating the 3/3 beast token. So yeah, so you'll never see that with this kind of setup. Meanwhile, forcing players to sacrifice something, that also can be really good. Um, but it depends. The problem is this one gives your opponent a lot of options. The best ones that force your opponent to sacrifice minimize those options. So there are some cards that say target opponent sacrifices a card or sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. So in that case, if they have two creatures that are tied, they get to pick which one. All right. But if they don't, then it's just decided for them and it's just that one and it's probably going to be one of their best creatures because it's their biggest or at least it's their most powerful. Then you also have cards like what is it? Liliana, Victory Liliana? No, Liliana's Triumph. That's the one where it's target player sacrifices a creature, but it only costs two and it's an instant speed. So that's pretty great. They get to pick They get to pick the creature, but they have to sacrifice a creature. So if you have an opponent who is investing in one or two creatures very heavily and they're very good, that hits them really freaking hard. If you have an opponent going wide, it's not so bad because they can just let one of their tokens or one of their 1/1s go and they'll move on to the next, and they'll be okay. So it varies depending on the situation. Um, Interestingly enough, Misguided Rage and Liliana's Triumph are both commons. Meanwhile, Liliana's Triumph, pretty damn good. Misguided Rage, not so much. What else? The other thing about this that really just flat out stinks is the fact that it's at sorcery speed. That's rough. That's really rough. In fact, whenever your removal is at sorcery speed, then it's frustrating because that limits your options even further. So here we have a situation where your opponent is getting hit with a negative effect, but they have total control over how they're going to respond to it. And that sucks. As the person casting it, I'm going to be really disappointed because they know what's important for their game plan and they know what they can live without. When you're hitting with targeted removal, you're kind of having to guess, okay, which pieces are going to be most important for them. And the better you know their deck, the better you know the meta that they're building into, the better you know what's going on in that game. You can make those educated decisions and have a pretty high hit rate on what's going to be valuable versus what isn't. Meanwhile, Misguided Rage, your opponent has every single choice in the world. They know what's important, they know what's not. They're going to lose the part that's not, and the parts that are important are just going to keep on rolling. The only time this presents a situation that is meaningful and very dramatically impactful is when your opponent is running a super lean board state and they don't have a lot of options. Or, yeah, they don't have a lot of excess. They can't afford to lose any single thing that they have. And if they find themselves in that position, if you've managed to get up to 3 mana, you have better ways to respond to it. There just are. So this is the thing where this is a limited exclusive is the only time you would even consider playing it, and even then, there's better removal in Scourge than this. I mean, it's something, and I understand some removal is good. Sometimes you just need removal in limited, but the fact that it's any permanent, it's just not good. It stinks, but that's the fact. Now the artwork on this is freaking great. It's by Michael Surfin. Surfin, is that right? The text is Sutphin. Michael Sutphin, and it is depicting a goblin that is actually climbing on top of one goblin to choke out another goblin. So it is clearly a goblin just in a fit of passion, like attacking another goblin. And the one that it's attacking is very confused. It has no clue what's going on. So I find this kind of funny. It looks to me like the goblin that is attacking the aggressor in this situation looks like there is like a fiery aura around them as though they are under some kind of spell, perhaps a threaten effect. Threaten, portent of betrayal, claim the firstborn, like these effects that or active betrayal. That's the other one. There are a ton more. It's a very common effect in red, where you take control of a creature, untap it, it gains haste, and then at the end of turn you give it back. That's something that happens a lot in red. So it's where it's temporary, but it could be very powerful. If you remove a key blocker or if you take a key part of their strategy, especially if you have a sacrifice outlet, because then you can just sacrifice it, get rid of it, and yeah, that's just nice. And it looks to me like the aggressor in this image is under the effect of one of those spells, and it's going after one of their friends, or perhaps a relative even. I don't know. But they're clearly allies, and the one is just trying to kill the other one, and he's just confused and like putting up a little bit of a fight, like he's reaching up and grabbing the aggressor's arm as though to try to hold him back. But it looks like I would say he reacted a little too late, because he didn't see it coming, and so that's interesting. That's a fun. The artwork is great. I love, generally speaking, when you put goblins on artwork, I'm down. There's also some flavor text. Only when the anger passed did Varv realize he had burned down his home, destroyed his weapons, and killed his friend Furt. Oh, Furt! Poor Furt. Oh man. If you're not familiar, Furt is a name that actually shows up a couple of times in just really unpleasant ways. I feel bad for Furt. He's got a really rough life. Man, Varv, what were you thinking, man? So he was just in just a passion of rage. Yeah, burned down his home, destroyed his weapons, and killed his friend Furt. Oh man, poor Furt. R.I.P. Furt. This one's for you. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. This has been a blast as always. Um, I'm over on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhocks42. Check me out over there. Click that follow button. You will see every time I go live, which is at least every weekday. And yeah, I'll see you over there. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you next time.